Hello, welcome back to the Robaer Report. My name is Robaer Washington, your host of the Robaer Report, coming live on this YouTube and Facebook live stream by way of StreamYard. And so happy to see you all today. Today is a little bit different. Usually, I have a guest on the show and my show may be going in and out. Hopefully, it's not. Been having a little bit of technical issues, struggle streaming over here, and hopefully, my internet service provider will come and see about me at some point. And with that being said, we'll get into the show. The title of this show today is, of course, the Robaer Report. And unfortunately, on this past Thursday, I believe, uh, the content creation world lost a real maverick in this content creation space. Uh, a man by the name of Mr. Kevin Samuels. I'll put up some information about him in a moment. I will not be playing any of Mr. Samuels' uh, content. I don't want to have those problems with regard to strikes by way of YouTube, Facebook, uh, his estate coming after this network or even me for copyright infringement. I will not even use the fair use clause, so that will not be taking place today. Um, but once again, this is the Robaer Report, where our topic is always an individual and their contribution to society and to societal development. So I chose to talk about Mr. Samuels. I caught wind of this gentleman a year and a half ago, and unfortunately, I hadn't known about him prior, or else I would have learned more about his platform. But I will watch him periodically. And let me pull up. What I can do is I will not be showing any of Mr. Samuel's material, but what I will be doing is showing Mr. Samuel's YouTube page. All right. I will be showing the YouTube page. And how do we do this? I'm going to stop share and get back to where I was. Yeah, so let me share this again. Yeah, it's moving quite slow. And that's my bad, my fault that I'm struggle streaming over here. Shout out to the lead attorney. The lead attorney is one of Kevin Samuel's cohorts. They're in the same cohort group. He uses. We'll say, okay, so we have it up. I will not be playing any of Mr. Samuel's content. I will not be playing. And so I am. I have. Let me see. Pull this up once it comes. Well, until whenever it comes up, then we'll continue. So, Mr. Samuel's YouTube page, and so there's smoke about Mr. Samuel's lately, and I'll show, in my opinion, what the drama behind what Mr. Samuel's content was about. And of course, my computer is on one bar, and connection is fairly good. You know, Wi-Fi. Try to plug it. Yeah, I'm on a router. Uh, so let me pull up his page. So, I just had it up. You know, at a certain point, I think that they may be removing Mr. Samuel's content. Okay, so great. So we have this up. So is right in of his faces, people are has coming out of Mr. Samuel's mouth. I am here today to discuss other attributes regarding Mr. Samuel's broadcast. That's why I hope that this stream goes well. Looks like it is back in real time and not choppy. All right, so if we go to his screen, we see that Mr. Samuels has 1.45 million subscribers on this YouTube platform. Um, Let me see if I can bring that in a little bit more. So when I first learned of this gentleman, uh, it was a particular video that everybody was sharing around some words that he had for a young lady. And I don't believe he was at 1 million subscribers at the moment. Unbeknownst to me, the man had been around for years, and I was told that he teaches on men stuff. So I started watching, and year and a half later, the gentleman has 1.45 million followers just on YouTube alone, which I thought was pretty amazing because there are some people with 10 million followers on YouTube. Some people have 20 million. Some people have billions and billions and billions of views. Mr. Samuels, if we can go to his about page, and one of the other things that I'm doing with this live stream here is showing how to navigate YouTube because I really like this platform. Mr. Samuels, it says he joined May 20, 2015, and Mr. Samuels had he has almost 300 million views for his content. If you go to his about page, you'll see that. So wanted to bring that out. Regardless of what is being said about the gentleman, almost 297,850,405 views on his content. And this right here is probably one of the views as well. One of the things we'll discuss is right here in the top right-hand corner is a P, has donate next to it. It's called Patreon. I'll discuss that because I'm a Patreon member of not Mr. Samuels. I am a Patreon member of another young man who uses it for his podcast. One of my good friends from college. One day I'll have him on here to discuss his podcast. But I wanted to bring that page up regarding Mr. Samuels. So on Mr. Samuels' site, on his shows, and by the way, the suit is dapper as always, and so I got on my suit. I usually wear a suit. Usually wear a tie, not always a suit, and a suit jacket, and more than likely going to have on a collared shirt. Sometimes I do wear a sweater, but today, in honor of Mr. Samuels and in regard to his legacy, for his for his production value, I want to come in today in a suit, and of course, once again, pay homage to the gentleman. Also, Mr. Samuels. Let me see if I can pull this one up. I'm gonna stop sharing this screen, background, and I'm going to share another screen. A tool that Mr. Samuels used. Share screen. That tool is called an Elgato Stream Deck. Now, I'm going to look down real quick. I actually have an Elgato. I'll show the website as well. Sorry about the noise. I have an Elgato Stream Deck right here. This Elgato is a 32. It's 32 buttons. I bought it. Still hadn't used it yet. But it's the Elgato Stream Deck 32 button. They have a couple of them. They have actually you can use as an app on your phone. They have Elgato Stream Decks that operate with 6 buttons, 15 buttons. I think one may have 24 buttons. Don't get me. I don't want to misspeak on the software, on the hardware. But I think it's 24 buttons, but I got the one that I believe this is 32 buttons. Yeah, 32 buttons. And so on Mr. Samuel's show, Mr. Samuels would have these noises in the background. He would always be switching back and forth between cameras and between Zoom. And more recently, he's been bringing in his Instagram, and he has the Money World. So what this StreamYard does, and I'll pull it up online, so that if you're interested in developing your online presence, you can get yourself a Stream Deck. They actually have them on your cell phone. You can download. Well, you have to more than likely purchase the software, but you can use it on your cell phone. They have a foot pedal and everything. But you use this to press the buttons, and it's instead of having your mouse click on everything, click on all the tabs that you may have open, or click on the audio or the graphics that you may want to use on your live streams. Well, what you can do is have these graphics, audio, different camera angles, different lighting setups. You have them pre-populated inside of your Stream Deck, so that when you press a button, and of course, it'll show you where everything is. This thing is pretty intense. It has a $200+, but it's great. Um, you can use it to elevate your game in regard to going live. And so, yeah, that's one of the tools that I saw that he has, along with other YouTube streamers, whether they're doing live streams or edited videos, or whether they're doing podcasts. This thing is phenomenal. It will elevate your YouTube platform, elevate your streaming, elevate you as a content creator to new heights. Next, I will talk about a gentleman by the name of O'Shea Duke Jackson. So I'll stop sharing this screen, and I'll bring up Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson is a content creator that I follow on YouTube, and unbeknownst to me, I'd watched him, but he is a gentleman who has been given acclaim for bringing in Mr. Samuels into notoriety with regard to his YouTube or his social media presence. And so that is important because, I like, let me bring him in. Let me bring in Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson. Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson has various platforms, YouTube platforms, maybe on other channels, YouTube, maybe on other platforms for content creation as well, but I know he's on YouTube. And what is so important about Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson and is his ability to bring in various people into the social media world or into the content creation world and give them a boost, a platform by showing what a new content creator has and what they have to offer, showing them off to the world. And then when he shows them off to the world, some of his followers end up going to follow this new person that he's introduced into the content creation world. So I'm going to do a shameless plug, but I'm proud. Sorry about that. I am going to introduce, I'm going to get rid of Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson, and I'm going to introduce the gentleman who brought me in to this space. And well, not so much him, but the platform that he touts very highly. BeMoreNews.com. So BeMoreNews.com, you see in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, you have Mr. Donnie Glover. Behind Mr. Donnie Glover are individuals that he and his team see are worthy of a plaque. I got mine as well. And that plaque is to commemorate them on their efforts in the community. The Black Wall Street Awards. One of those people I see on the screen, I was actually on her show this past Saturday. I believe it showed. And yeah, so Be More News is a place for people to come together of like mind. And some of them, as I said, are streamers, are content creators. And we're given the privilege of passing along our message to the public. So just as I gave this shout out to Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson, I'll give a shout out to Mr. Donnie Glover, who is actually doing the same thing. Um, he is giving people who have a yearning to be content creators to share their message to the world. Uh, Mr. Donnie Glover has a platform that he's been developing for years, more than likely 2 decades. And he's giving people who want to share their message an opportunity. And just like Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson, he's allowing people to use his network and present on his network so that that new person such as myself can have access to his network. And I really appreciate him for that. So I bring up Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson in relation to Mr. Donnie Glover as I'm giving testimony about what Mr. Kevin Samuels has done. And Mr. Samuels used another person to help elevate his career, just like I'm doing, just like the other 15, 20 odd, maybe 30 people that we have on this Black USA News Network. We are working together to build a team. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that screen and I'm going to go to another screen where I'm going to discuss one of the things that caught my attention about Mr. Samuel's stream. And it was this thing on his desk. It always was moving back and forth, back and forth. It never stopped. It never stopped. Back and forth, back and forth. And if you go to, I went to Google first. What is that swinging circle thingy on Mr. Samuel's desk? So it's called the swinging. Let me pull it up. Struggle streaming again. And I really need to wish my internet company would come by here and see what's going on during my stream. So it's coming up, y'all. It's coming up. It's called the Swinging Kinetics. The Swinging Sticks Kinetic Energy Sculpture. This thing never stopped. The Swinging Sticks Kinetic Energy Sculpture. This little tool right here, for a year and a half, I watched it go back and forth on Mr. Samuel's desk. And I was always enamored by this thing because maybe once he had to touch it for it to continue moving, but I don't believe that he ever had to touch it. And why is this important? It's important because Mr. Samuels added a layer to the screen for his live stream. That is one of the primary layers that he had. So you had his camera out front, and then you have this swinging sticks kinetic energy sculpture that's moving back and forth in a circular motion almost. So most of us, such as what I'm doing now, we're sitting in front of a wall. We're sitting in front of a computer with a wall behind us with some type of camera. And as you see, I tried to add a layer to mine by putting this mic up. So to show that there's some disconnect between myself and the camera. That's talking about layering. That's a production and possibly a marketing concept that I just introduced. But I'll continue. So just like this microphone is adding a layer between myself and the screen, Mr. Samuels used that kinetic energy stick to create a layer as he was conducting his broadcast. Pretty exciting because one of the things that it did was take somehow, in some ways, at times, took the attention off of him and the message that he was bringing out, because our mind can get kind of lazy and it was always focusing on this thing going back and forth, and it was bringing some kinetic energy to the stream. So I thought that was pretty exciting of Mr. Samuels to have that tool to create a layer on his platform. So I wanted to bring that one up just in case anybody was looking, trying to figure out what that tool was. It's called the Swinging Sticks Kinetic Energy Sculpture. And I'm not being paid for any of this. The Elgato, the Swinging Sticks Kinetic Energy Sculpture, nor any of the other tools that I'm bringing on this live stream today of the Robaer Report. And thank you all for if you tuned in. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you tuned in today, thanks so much for tuning in today. If you're tuning in the future, thank you so much for tuning in the future. So I'll remove the swinging sticks kinetic energy sculpture, and I'll go to another tool. He used the Mac on his on when he was on location, not in the studio. It appeared that he was using a MacBook Pro, or may have been using the desktop. So I'm not sure about. I never actually saw the computer when he was in studio that I can recall, but I know that when he was on location, you could see the computer, and it appeared to be a MacBook Pro at times. Um, so those are great computers. I've been reading up about them. I'm right now using an HP. That may be the problem with the stream because of the power or the lack thereof in this computer that I'm using. But I'll continue. So next, I see also he used this tool called a Roadcaster. So let me stop this screen from the kinetic energy sculpture and bring in this Roadcaster. And this Roadcaster is one of my friends has it. He has something similar. Told me about it, and I didn't know what was. I always thought that it was the Elgato assisting with these noises, making these sounds, but it's actually the a Roadcaster, and it's almost like a computer, not a computer, but a piano keyboard. Uh, it's something that people who work in the audio mixing world, the audio world, and producers they will use to create sounds. Kind of fairly expensive, definitely affordable. Uh, if you are taking your production value to great heights, there are some that you can get. Like I see right here on Amazon, have a podcast equipment bundle with podcast condenser microphone. So it's similar to a Rodecaster. Rodecaster, in my opinion, is pretty much just the brand, or it may be the tool, but it's affordable. They have some at $1,200 with a lot of mics, so you can spend a lot or you can spend a little. You can learn, and then you can take your production value to an advanced level. And with regard to Mr. Samuel's production value, which is what this stream is about, he definitely took advantage of this Rodecaster and what it offers to streamers as they or content creators as they're in their attempt to get a message out. So thank you so much, Mr. Samuels, for highlighting that tool and allowing us to see it in actual practice. My next one is I'm going to look at is called the Patreon. Now, earlier, when I was looking at Mr. Samuel's screen, I looked at something that was in the top right-hand screen. It was a little P. And I'm going to stop sharing that screen. I'm going to share this Patreon. So Mr. Samuels had built himself up to a point where his Patreon, let me pull up Mr. Samuel's Patreon. His Patreon had a membership level. And I'm going to scroll down just a bit to show you Mr. Samuel's Patreon levels. So here we go right here. Home and on out, because I'm a Patreon member, so I can see it. I got a message on mine. What's going on my Patreon? Well, I don't have a Patreon where I can accept members, but I do have a Patreon where I do have access to the software where I can go in and look at what content creators are creating, which content creators are using this software to give people a more in-depth look at what they're offering with their content creation platform. So Mr. Samuels has certain membership levels from $5, $10, $20. As you see, he titled them. This man was pretty particular about levels. Okay, pretty particular. He has 10 levels: $50, $99, $249, $379, $499, $749, and $999 a month. In total, Mr. Samuels had 851 patrons. It's a lot of patrons. That's a lot of people who saw that this gentleman's message and decided to take part by financing his platform from $5 a month to $999 a month. Now I checked it out about a month ago, maybe 2 months, and he had this $999, and right now it has 7 remaining with a 007. Well, 007 is the name of it, but it's limited with 7 remaining. So at one point, I believe that number was different. So some people were paying, or are still maybe paying $1,000 a month to be a part of the crew that Mr. Samuels is creating. All right. So I bring that up to talk about one of the platforms that Mr. Samuels used in his growth as a content creator. Mr. Samuels took part in a program called Patreon. He also used Instagram. I don't know much about Instagram. I wasn't going to talk about that as much, but I just wanted to highlight today in this YouTube live stream different tactics that it appeared Mr. Samuels used to elevate his game. One of them is to build a large YouTube platform. 1.4. Great evening. How you doing, Mr. Hunter Blue? Mr. Hunter Blue is one of the content creators on Black USA News. Shout out to Mr. Hunter Blue. So Mr. Samuels used YouTube live stream. YouTube live stream. He also used Zoom. I didn't really bring in Zoom because I'm, excuse me, I believe more people are familiar with Zoom, so I didn't really want to have to bring that in. But he used Zoom. That was one of the tools that Mr. Samuels used to develop his game as a content creator. He also used Elgato Stream Deck, which I showed earlier. And I forgot. One of the things he talked about was the candle of the evening, but my candle kind of burned. I used it already. But it's a Dollar Tree candle. It's not a La La Bo or whatever he says. I don't speak French. My name French. That's what they told me. But I got a candle of the evening. I think this is candy apple or green apple from Dollar Tree. I don't have anything to light it, but I lit it the other day and it had my apartment smelling just like candy apple, green apple. He also had smell of the evening. I don't have any smells, but I do have herbs that I purchased from a herb botanical store here in Washington, well, in the Washington, D.C. metro area. It's actually in Washington, D.C. So I'll talk about 2 of them right now. And I'm going to have those gentlemen on at some point. One is called New Blood. You put this in some hot water and you let it steep for 30 seconds and you drink it, you will be awake for hours. I wish Mr. Samuels could have found out about this instead of drinking all them Red Bulls. This right here is going to pump you up as if you at a rock concert. New Blood. And I'll have these gentlemen on one day to talk about some of the herbs they have. This is New Blood. This right here is called elderberry. Elderberry, I know it has health properties. I hadn't found them all out. I hadn't found out about any of them, but I know one health property that I've come across with elderberry is elderberry. You take this berry, you can't chew it. I mean, you may be able to when it's in the wild, but right now it's kind of hard. It's stiff. You may be able to chew it, but I wouldn't suggest it. It's not soft in this bag. But you put these in water and you boil it, it tastes better than Kool-Aid. This has a natural sweetener to it. And it has health properties. One I believe so because I bought it out of the herb store, Blue Nile Botanicals in Washington, D.C. But even if it did not have one healing property, because of the taste, it's better than Kool-Aid as far as healing your body. But the taste is better than Kool-Aid. I believe that this right here would revolutionize children drinking Kool-Aid. I grew up on Kool-Aid, so I'm not going to hate on Kool-Aid. I love it. But I believe that this has a better, let me see, hello from Tampa. Got somebody else. Michael Randolph, how you doing today, sir? How are you? Thank you for coming in, tuning in to the stream. Right here talking about, hey, I don't have the fragrance of the evening, but I do have the herbs of the evening, new blood and elderberry. Two, I wouldn't use them at the same time. You might be bouncing off the wall, but you probably can use them within the same day. So back to the stream. Um, Also, I wanted to bring up Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson, who was a mentor for Mr. Samuels, and how Mr. Samuels used that leverage to help build his career. Mr. Samuels has about 4 or 5 times more followers than Mr. O'Shea Duke Jackson does. So that tells you something. And they were at least on YouTube, or at least on content creator platforms. They were not in contest with each other. They actually worked together. The next uh, uh, level for Mr. Samuel's content creation was the swinging sticks, the swinging circle that he had on his platform. And next, I spoke of the MacBook Pro. Next was the Rodecaster to help with the sounds, along with the Elgato with the help with the sounds. And lastly was the Patreon. So this stream today, I did not have a guest, and that was purposeful. I wanted to give a testimony to what Mr. Samuels brought for myself. Not so much the message that he had. Hey man, I enjoyed the message. I will speak on that message. I'm not going to shy away from it. Hey man, I didn't always like what the gentleman said, and I'm not a woman, so I can't even speak on what he said to women. I'm talking about me, and I didn't always like it. Yet as I sat back and I thought about it days after he said it, his intention for men at least, was for the better themselves. So after I thought about it, after I got out of my feelings, I stepped out of my own way and I thought about some of the things he was saying for men, and I removed men and man, and I put Robaer right there, and I started thinking about some things that he was saying. I say, you know what? If anything, I can look at this guy, take what he's saying out of his message, and take out what I want and keep moving forward. As you can see, his closet. I mean, I'm a suit guy, but I definitely don't have a closet that looks like that. That's a walk-in or something. I don't know, but I am privileged to have being alive during this time period in history, to have witnessed Mr. Samuels in his rise to, well, not his rise to stardom, but towards the last year and a half of his life, and just seeing what he brought to the world regarding content creation, and the tools that he employed to get his message out to the world. I mean, this Elgato Stream Deck, this thing is a game changer, because I'm sure in the background you probably can hear people on YouTube. They have these click, click, click. They're clicking their mouse. Well, this Elgato Stream Deck removes that. You don't really hear a click. You don't hear anything. You just see graphics. You see camera changes. You see lighting changes. You see different activity taking place that, because of my background in television production, I understand that there was a whole separate team of people actually working what's going on the screen when you're watching some type of broadcast, whether that be network television, whether that be cable, whether that be even YouTube. Sometimes there's a whole room of people working on sound, working on character generation, working on the direction, working on the changing up the lighting. You have the camera people in the background, whereas you have this Stream Deck, which is for a few $100s, takes care of your control room. And so, once again, I want to give a shout out to two people: William Hunter Blue for coming in. Great evening to you, Mr. Sir, Mr. Junior, Sir Junior, and lastly, once again to Mr. Michael Randolph. from Hello from Tampa. Hello, coming from Gatesburg, Maryland. And lastly, I want to say thank you so much to Mr. Samuels and the legacy that you built, whatever your legacy will be in the future. Um, and thank you for teaching us by way of practice what it meant to be a content creator by showing us what it's like, by showing us how to employ just a few of these tools that I've shown today. But thank you for showing us how that we can employ these tools in practice to make ourselves better content creators. This is Robaer Washington with the Robaer Report, where our goal is to talk with individuals and discuss their contribution to society. Today is May 5th, 2022. I will sign off. Thank you so much. Peace. And until next Monday, take care.